morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from Mason Works Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my friend Nancy Rynes. How are you, Nancy?
I'm
Rynes.
I'm really good, thank you.
So Nancy and I got to meet a couple years ago in Philadelphia, although our
Mhm.
mutual friend Jackie Arnold told me I had to meet her, I had to meet her probably for years before we got to meet. And we met at an IONS conference, which we will talk about later on in our conversation. But when we met, we had breakfast, I think, together,
Yeah.
and um, you can just feel the people that have touched the other side. There's something about res- this experience that once you've had it,
Mhm.
there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's a instant heart opening and a different way that you walk in the world. And so I'd love for you, any way that you'd like to share about your near-death experience. And I know you were on the Today Show
Yep.
even, so I'm really honored that you're on my little show. But anyway, so I thought if you could talk a little bit about the not just the experience, but the after effects.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it was obviously a real eye opener for me because before all this happened, the story actually starts before the near death experience, or as I like to call it, the death experience, because I was dead. I wasn't close to dead. I was dead.
Yeah.
So to me, there's a difference. And I know to a lot of people, there's a difference, but the official term is correct, Kathy. It is officially termed near death experience. We're trying to get that changed from this side, but we'll see if we can do that. But
Okay.
the story for me actually starts before then, because um, before all this happened, I didn't believe in anything spiritual at all. I mean, not really. I wanted to, but because, I had been in the scientific community for so long, and I wasn't really, I guess I wouldn't call but in hindsight, I was not an open-minded scientist, meaning I wasn't real curious. I had my ideas and that was it. If I couldn't measure it with a ruler or hit it with my rock hammer, it wasn't real. And it's pretty tough to hit the other side with your rock hammer and have it, make sparks or something. So I just didn't believe in any of that stuff. Uh, and I didn't really understand enough about, modern quantum physics to know that there's maybe a little opening there for all of this stuff to come together. So I was just stuck in that material reality, which a lot of people are. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's what we're born into. Uh, and we just go about our daily lives and make a good life, and that's cool for most people. If that's what you want to do, that's totally cool. You can make an awesome life, be a great person, and never, travel to the other side until it's finally your time. But so I didn't believe in any of that. I was really stuck in this material reality. And then I think it was like in the autumn of 2013, so a few months before my NDE, there was an unease I was starting to feel, and I think it was probably a little bit of a premonition. Now, in my prior life as a materialist scientist, you can't time travel or any of that kind of stuff, right? But now with kind of my current understanding, I could, and a little bit better understanding of physics, I think I was really starting to get some vibes, if you will, of what was coming down the road, or at least maybe my soul knew what was coming down the road. I'm not sure, but there was definitely this unease, and I started having really bizarre dreams about, just peripherally, about people who had previously passed away. And it had actually kind of scared my family, my sister, older sister especially, because she was a lot more spiritually minded than and I didn't know these people who were coming to me in my dreams, but she did. They had been her friends not mine. And we're separated in age by a big margin. So I never actually met any of these people. She's quite a bit, I, I hate to say it, Mary, if you're watching, you're quite a bit older than me. But, you know, she's sort of in another generation. So she kept to her, you know, she kept her friends to herself, and I was just a little kid. So it didn't make sense for us to mingle, but I was definitely getting clear messages from one of her friends that had died when she was a teenager. So quite a while ago. And it was coming in the form of these dreams that I was surrounded by like a million butterflies. And I didn't really like butterflies all that much, nor was I really attracted to them. But here I was in these dreams with butterflies, and I kept getting these images of this woman. And it turns out it was my sister's friend. Anyway, so that went on, like I said, for a couple of months. And then January of 2014 came around. It was January 3rd when the accident happened. And I won't go into a lot of detail because I really want to I want to gloss over the first NDE and kind of get to my second one, which happened later. But this first one is detailed in my book, Awakenings from the Light. So if you really want the nitty gritty, you can read that book. But the first one happened as a result of a bike versus SUV accident.
Right.
I was the bike and a woman T-boned me while she was texting. So please don't text and drive. And it almost killed me on sight. For the, you know, the grace of the divine, I'm still here, but it was a pretty harrowing experience. And I had some really kind of bizarre things that happened during the accident, which started to really, like, I was propelled out of my body, but I wasn't propelled to the other side quite yet. I was watching everything from a vantage point outside. And I'm thinking, like, this is kind of weird. I'm literally thinking this, like, they didn't prepare me for this in graduate school. Like, I didn't remember them talking about this kind of stuff.
Did
And
I skip this class?
I know, like, where was this? Was this, you know, NDE 201 or something that I missed? But
Wow.
so some stuff happened. Luckily, obviously, I'm still here. I was saved by, there was a nurse and a doctor who, quote, happened to be in the right there.
Angels.
Both of them were trauma trained.
Perfect.
And which I needed because I was pretty badly broken up. It was pretty bad. They stopped counting the number of bone breaks and just counted the numbers of broken bones. So I had a lot of broken bones and the bones were broken in multiple places. So there were probably somewhere well over 100 different bone breaks.
Oh my God.
And most of that was in my my back and my neck, and all of those little, if you look at a human skeleton diagram on the internet, you can see all those little funky little processes that go off your vertebrae. Pretty much all of those were cracked.
Oh my gosh.
So I had a lot of trauma to my spine. And, you know, the only reason that I wasn't either a paraplegic or quadriplegic was those two medical professionals. If it hadn't, especially the nurse who sort of appeared out of nowhere, and if it hadn't been for her, I probably would not have survived very long because I was starting to move around and I didn't know it, but my neck was really in bad shape. So it would have been easy to just sever the spine right up at the base of the skull. Had she not, she literally just like put her hands on me and said, stop, stop what you're doing, stop moving. And so I got to the hospital. Again, I was really badly injured. And it took them a while to get a surgeon to come in and see what could possibly be done. But they determined that I could have surgery, that I would not be a paraplegic, even though I was getting a little numbness in my legs. And I was like, holy cow, I'm not going to move until you tell me to, because I don't want to lose my mobility. So he was able to determine that they could do surgery. Basically, what they were going to do is implant rods on either side of my spine and titanium. So I'm like, you know, Ms.
Bionic.
Metal back there. I'm Iron Woman
You're a bionic now.
or Titanium Woman, as the case may be. And so that's what they decided to do, and that would stabilize the spine until I could fully heal. It was either that was option one. The only other option was laying flat on my back in a hospital room for 6 to 9, 12 months. I'm like, that's not an option for me.
Yeah.
So I opted for the surgery, and that's when the NDE happened. I had some kind of a reaction to the anesthesia and flatlined pretty quickly, like almost as soon as they gave it to me. And that's when I had this incredible experience of death and of what real life is like. Like, this is like life. When I put my hands way far apart, that's like the afterlife. That's really life. And I knew that as soon as I crossed over, or as soon as I died, like almost like waking up from a kind of a dream. And I woke up in this place, and I was standing, and I was whole and healthy and didn't hurt. And I thought, well, this is pretty cool. At first I thought maybe this was a hallucination, so my analytical mind was still
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And then I realized, now wait a minute, the whole point of anesthesia and all, I knew the drugs that they gave me was to basically take your consciousness to zero completely. Like, I shouldn't be
Aware.
analyzing the situation and aware and remembering. Because they gave me an anesthesia drug, or an amnesia drug as well, to make sure that I couldn't remember anything. But I remembered everything. And I remembered as I was dead, as I was in the afterlife. So I remembered while I was out, and then I remembered when I came back. So, the amnesia drug didn't work. But I did die, and that's when all of this crazy stuff happened that's in the book Awakenings from the Light. So from there, I spent, again, I won't go into a lot of detail, but I spent what seemed to be like, would be the equivalent of 2 or 3 months there. And I was with a spiritual teacher my spiritual teacher for that experience, and learned a lot of stuff. And I put all that in the book. So we don't need to
want
go
to read
into it.
that book. I've got the other one, but I don't have the second one.
Yeah, they're both, the second one is called Walking in the Light. The first one is Awakenings from the Light. So the first one is really the play-by-play, the story.
Yeah.
But then it also has all of the kind of a breakdown of the information that I got, that it was my first opportunity to share that with readers. Like, here's what I learned. Here's what you can do. Here's what they're telling me anyway, or I'm being told how I can live a better life. And I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
And it's really what I doing was learning all of that stuff. And it was stuff that it was forgotten or turned away from. And it was really a lot of it was it was a really deep reminder, but there was new stuff in there too that took me a while to really process. A lot of it I didn't really fully process until the second book that I wrote last summer during COVID. So that first experience was like earth-shattering for me. It completely changed my life. I came back to this life, and while I was still me at heart and in my soul, it had changed my presence here as a human being, in this physical reality. And, I had some weird side effects that maybe were not so weird, but like my analytical ability sort of, it didn't go away, but it decreased a lot, but my creative abilities went crazy through the roof. And kind of things like that. Like, I think I had some kind of intuitive or psychic, I hate to use the word psychic because you get this image in your head, but intuitive abilities that I'd had before and sort of denied, but those really came back to the surface.
Well, you even be in your first your bicycle accident, you had intuition, don't ride your bicycle. So you were
Yeah.
already getting stuff, but you probably were like going, "Oh, who's that?"
Right. Yeah.
What
That
what do
doesn't
they
make
want?
any
You got the
sense.
wrong person, you know. Whereas now you're so open because you know there's so much more that's unseen to all of it. That's where all your creative Nancy's an artist now, and not only an author, an artist, and we'll get there too. But
Yeah.
so your articulation of your experience, you said you processed more and more, and I find that a lot with the authors I work with. A lot of times their first book is a healing book where they a lot of times it's where you come to grips with your story
Hmm.
and heal the parts of it that are ready. That's all you can say. That's nobody's judgment at all. When you started to write this book, did you feel like I've got to tell everybody, or did you feel like I've got to share? How did this feel? Did you feel like, hey, they got it all wrong? Religion's got it all wrong. I
No.
got to tell them, or did you have any feeling about that?
No, the second one was really as a result of a lot of my readers of the first book and people that had come to my workshops. And, you noted it early on. One of the things that they noted about me, especially in person, is like nothing phases me.
Yeah,
Like, no fear, no drama, no, like I let go of that during this NDE. It was gone.
perfect.
And they people have always commented about how peaceful
Yes.
and loving that you are. And I said, well, that was a lot of work, to get there. I processed a lot after my NDE, and I did it as quickly as I could because I just felt like now or never, right? If I'm going to change my life, I think 46 at the time this happened. And I thought, well, shoot, I don't know. This may be my only opportunity. Who knows when I'm going to go next in for real? It could be next year. So I want to make sure I get it
Yeah.
right away. Um, so I started, what I ended up doing, I realized is that I needed to embrace the teachings of my spiritual teacher during my NDE. I was a little hesitant to do that at first because a lot of it seemed really weird. Um,
Okay, now I'm curious.
well, it's simple stuff. I mean, the thing is that this approach that I've developed is a result of working with her and my other teachers during that experience. But they knew that if it wasn't simple and easy to follow, I wouldn't do it.
Oh, I see.
I'm not going to go, this isn't me. Some of you out there may feel differently, but for my life, spending 2 years in an ashram or some kind of silent meditation retreat wasn't going to cut it.
No, no.
And doing long, complicated stuff, whatever it wasn't going to cut it. I needed simple, easy to follow ways to bring myself more fully into this life, because that's really what it was about for me. I know the afterlife is there. It's incredible. The whole key to this in coming back, though, isn't, oh, it's so great over there, I just want to be there now. It's, how do I live that experience here now?
Perfect.
And how do I teach that to others? And I thought, well, if I'm going to teach it to people, I need to live it. That's really my whole goal. Like, if I've met a lot of not a lot, but I've met spiritual teachers who
Yeah.
never lived their teachings. And so it seems hollow. And I knew that I needed to live it. And so I lived it and I put it into practice year after year after year and got to the point where like that human chattery mind sort of
Yeah.
drifts away and the ego is off to that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that human ego really it can get in the way of really being present here and now. Not that I want people to kill it, that's wrong, but I want you to put it off to the side and live from your soul, not from your ego. And
Right.
that's what I teach in at least my method for that in walking in the light is how did I do that? What was my process for doing that? And
Great.
it's a program that kind of walks you through putting together your own program
Oh, it sounds perfect.
based on your life. Like I don't want to tell you what to do. People know me, they're like, "You never tell anybody what to do." No, because I don't want to step on your own personal choice.
Perfect.
But I do want to guide people into at least, once you know what it looks like for someone else, then you can start to refine that process for yourself. But it does take time each day. It's not like you just think about it once in the morning for 10 seconds and you're done. It's a process and you have to give yourself a break and be patient and have fun with it and
Right.
laugh at yourself because sometimes it's ridiculous and take that opportunity to just learn how to be more consciously aware. If that's all you do, learn how to be more aware, less fearful and more loving, that's going to enrich your life right there.
That's perfect. 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 So a couple things. Is this process, are you still doing workshops? Or is this mostly done by reading the book and then follow what's in the book?
Well, right now, I'm actually putting together a workshop that I'll deliver at the IANS conference coming
Oh,
up. That'll be the first one. Let me grab the book here real quick. So this is the book.
okay.
And this new workshop, it's just a 2-hour workshop based on just a tiny little bit, just one chapter of that book, because that book, it covers a lot of territory. And so I wanted to just narrow down the topic for this next workshop, which is the upcoming IANS conference.
Right.
And what we'll go into during that workshop is really a little cutting edge stuff that I haven't talked about in my workshops before. And this I'm working on developing into a longer, like multi-day experience that I think I'll deliver it both in person and online. In person, let's hope, definitely online.
You know what? I'm still energy is so easy to transfer through this medium
Yep,
that I'm happy with that. And then when you get a recording, it's it's good.
yep,
I'm still really happy with the online stuff personally. But
yeah.
okay, so you, Nancy, you had an experience and you talked about your teachers. Were those teachers unseen and from the other side, or are they here with you now?
Well, everybody's a teacher for me.
Okay, me
but
too.
but the ones I'm talking about, that helped me during my NDE were those who are not in physical form right
Okay,
now.
okay,
And they also, whether they realize it or not, were instrumental in the creation of this book because a lot of that information that I gleaned that first NDE came through in this second book.
yeah,
I've just put it in a different format. A lot of it's similar, but then there's some pretty interesting new stuff too. But
okay,
yeah, but I do want to mention that yeah, I do learn from everyone, like even people that I don't necessarily, like as a friend, people maybe that I have a challenge with or something, those people are still teachers. So everyone can be a teacher. What it's just being, like you got to be open to it in your mind and heart. and just always look for the lesson and the opportunity, both of those things together. Look for the lesson in a situation and then the opportunity. And that's kind of how I go about my life right now.
It sounds very Buddhist Zen, where you're in. Well, I do think this period we're in is so full of chaos, and the challenge is how do you stay in harmony so that you can be from that soul area. I also want to say that I'm just so glad to have this conversation because I think a big part of this past year and a half now, has been for as many people as possible to have soul body fusion. And that's what I'm calling what you're talking about, is that where more of the light of their being inhabits this vessel, so that they're working from that aspect of light, which is high energy, high creativity, high joy. I mean, it's really a different place of living, where everything, where the Bible or Jesus said, let them be like children. Yeah. That. Right?
Yeah, I call that, just in my humble little words, is living from the soul. Not living from the ego, because the ego is full of fear, the ego is full of anxiety and worry, and that's its job. Its job is to keep you safe as you navigate this kind of crazy physical existence. But you don't have to live from that. You can live from, like you said, Kathy, that higher plane, that higher consciousness, and make decisions based on love, and gratitude instead of fear. You
Right.
can make decisions that are more in tune with your soul, and also that divine energy, however you want to call that. But it's interesting you mentioned that with this, a lot of this sounds very Buddhist. The very fun thing for me about when I used to travel, and I actually do, I'm one of the few people that like to travel.
Me too.
Not a lot, but I do like to
Yeah.
travel for these types of interviews and stuff. Um, I enjoy that. I enjoy speaking in front of a live audience. But one of the things that people all over the country, and I have not traveled internationally yet to talk about this, but I suspect I'm going to get it overseas as well, is that consistently, no matter what religion a person is, no matter how they were raised, what ethnic group, they always say something like, your teachings sound so much like what I learned as the core of my personal philosophy or my religion or whatever. Like, I've had Buddhists come up to me to say that. I have had Hindus come up to me to say that.
Yeah.
I have had people in the Native American community, a
Perfect.
lot of people in the Native American community, because I talk a lot about, the divine soul that is in everything, and that everything is soul, everything is divine.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had people are, of the Jewish faith, people that study the Kabbalah. So the thing is that it isn't like the sole domain of one particular religion.
Right.
This underlies, I would say, the majority of our religions, but we've then changed some bits of those religions to make, they're distinct that way. But the core messages of love, of working on being here now, all of that stuff runs from it. It's everybody feels that way at core. That's just how we're all, I think that's how we come in, with that spiritual tendency to want to be that way. So it's the underlying, structure of most of our religions, but then a lot of stuff gets,
Yeah.
added on. But that's one of the things that unites us all, are those core beliefs in love, kindness, compassion, gratitude. One of the big things that a lot of people don't realize is like forgiveness and letting go, or the Buddhists call it non-attachment, not detachment, but non-attachment. Staying, not getting entrained by the weird goings on of this life, just kind of letting it go, learning how to let that stuff go. And those are a lot of core beliefs for everyone, but it's really formed the core of what I've had to learn myself over the last 7 years. So I'm
Wow.
glad that people connect with it, because to me that means it rings true. Like if what I was taught was so vastly different than what people at core are coming away with from their own religions, I'm like, I would think like, maybe it wasn't so good what they taught me.
Oh, you'd be worried about who you met. Where were you? They just
Yeah.
made it look good.
But you really, like, what they were telling me was like, if all you can do is learn how to love,
Oh,
really love,
beautiful.
and be grateful, that's all you're gonna need,
Oh, it's so beautiful.
you
So,
know?
okay, so many questions. Okay, so one of my questions is, how did you find that this allowed you to love yourself first, and then that's how you're emanating love out to everybody? Is that part of what the training is, or the the reaction? That I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
I think personally for me, it was after, during the 2014, 2015, when I was really starting to work with all this stuff, that's really what came out of it, was gratitude for myself, gratitude for this physical self and soul self, um, being loving and compassionate and kind. A lot of people aren't very kind to themselves, and I certainly wasn't before that. So I didn't know I was working on that. I just sort of, it was my primary focus, even though that wasn't consciously what I thought I was doing. But by learning how to really love and learning how to be grateful, then I was able to see and direct that love to myself, because I'm just a part of all this too. So if I, am loving and grateful for everybody else, then why not me? Like, why would I keep myself from that?
Right, right. Well, it all is one, but it starts with your emanation of your energy and your essence. So
Yeah.
that's why. Okay. So did you find that you are still in contact with these guides? Are you still getting guidance?
I am, when I wish for it.
Okay.
I can certainly get into a meditative state and reach out. It's almost like, maybe like shamanic journeying, because I've done a little bit of that. Not with drugs, but with drums. So drum based journeying. I don't want anybody to like start using substances to get. You don't want to use substances to do this, by the way. But drum journeying, because there are different ways to get into that slightly altered state, and by altered I mean out of your ego.
Right.
And once you're out of your ego, then it's easier to get that like spiritual connection going. So I learned a lot of different techniques, but then kind of put my own way together, which is in the book. It's actually in both of my books. But
Right.
so I do that very consciously. I don't allow, I'm not like, some of these quote channelers who allow an entity to take over their bodies. I don't allow that. I just reach out and get the information. Sometimes if I get myself in a real pickle,
Uh-huh.
um, or and need guidance like right now, that information just kind of comes through as like this huge intuitive knowing, like, oh, that's the way I need to go with this decision, not this way.
So do you test it all? Like, do you do any testing to make decisions, or you're totally clear? You're
It's pretty clear. Like, uh, w- I don't do, I don't trust the body all that much.
oh,
Um,
interesting.
because I know some people do these bizarre body testings. I haven't had real good luck with that.
Okay.
And so what I do is I do what I call the 3-part check. And I do the head, the gut, which is the intuition. That's usually the first thing that comes through for me,
Yep.
is that gut sense. The head, the gut, and the heart. And usually it's the head and the heart that take a little bit of analysis. So I'll get the intuitive hit, like, okay, this is the decision that you need to make here. Usually it's something related to like where to move. Like when I moved here to Arizona, this was an intuitive decision, not a, I tried to make it a head-based decision, but it ended up being an intuitive decision, which was fine. It's worked out really well. But usually I'll get the hit like intuitively, like, oh, this is the way I'm supposed to go. And it's really strong, like overwhelming. So then I take a little bit of time and do an analytical check. Okay, what are the pros and cons real quick? I don't go into a lot of depth with this, but I do use some discernment. You really do have to, like, okay, so what are the pros and cons?
Uh-huh.
What could possibly happen? Like, what do I need to keep in mind as I go forward? And then I do a heart check. And the heart, by that I mean, what's the most loving thing that I can do in this situation, or the kindest thing, or the most compassionate thing? And sometimes that's for yourself. So you're not, for me, I can't divorce myself from this heart check, because I'm a part of it. If the most loving thing is the most loving thing for me, and it's not going to hurt other people, then I'll go with the gut, with the intuition. It's part of like learning how to discern those messages from that 3-part: head, heart, gut. Again, if you have some body methods that you all use, that's cool. I've just had some bizarre things happen with that I just don't trust it for myself. So
Yes. Well, I had a spiritually transformative experience. I didn't have a near-death experience, as far as I know. Although I almost died when I was 2 weeks old. So I don't know, maybe I did.
maybe.
Because I'm fascinated with all this. So who knows? But I think of it, I remember it every single day. It happened 17 years ago. And I remember it every single day. And that's why I said something about bringing in more light, is that I saw really how big the potential is of us. Each one of us is huge, and I want to hold more. So that's why I was asking about your processes. Do you find that you think about it? It's sort of the vision of what you saw on the other side. Is that something that shows up every morning when you wake up?
I don't know if it's every morning. I think the essence of what I took away is always there. And I usually reflect on that every morning, but I don't, for me, and a lot of people don't really understand this part of it. So for me, the visual experience that I had while I was there, so like the sights and sounds, are only minimally important to me. It was the teachings that I came away with that form the core of how I live my life now.
Okay.
Like, the thing is that for me, I knew that the visuals in my experience were just constructed. They weren't real
Yeah.
from that place. So I was sort of like in a, if you're a Star Trek fan, like the holodeck,
Yeah.
or, I know there are some Trekkies out there. I'm totally one, by the way.
Yeah.
If I can't do this, right, there we go. Yeah, live long and prosper. So the visuals are only minimally important, because for me, I absolutely knew that this quote reality I was in wasn't really the full reality of the afterlife. It was sort of like my little room.
Oh, so you didn't go down the tunnel, and did you see your past life review?
I saw my life review, yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
the thing is that most people when they have an NDE don't get to go the full distance into the
Right.
afterlife. You're actually held. It's like a holding room, and it's geared toward you and what you need to experience, either
Yeah.
what makes you feel comfortable or what's going to help you learn the best. Most near-death experiencers don't get to cross that threshold into the
Right.
real afterlife, because if you do, then you're dead, and then you're
Right.
not likely going to come back. A few have, and then cross back over and come back. But most of us are like held in. It's sort of like the green room, when you're. When I was sitting like when I was sitting waiting to go on the Today Show, I
Yeah.
was sitting there in the green room thinking, "Oh my God, this is just like, it's like the equivalent of the NDE," because I was in the green room there. And I called it Heaven's Green Room because it was like this little holding area where
Yeah.
all this stuff happened. And it was geared toward me specifically.
Beautiful.
So the visuals, like I said, aren't as important as the messages. So I don't really reflect on what I saw and heard
Okay.
as much as I do reflect on the teachings every day. And usually it's, how can I be more loving and present?
Perfect.
And it may sound weird, but sometimes the most loving thing that you can do in that given day or in a given situation is letting someone stumble and fall and have their own aha moment. You can't live someone else's life for them. So love encompasses a lot of different things. It's not just giving, giving, giving of yourself. Sometimes it's kind of waiting and watching, and if they need you, then you're there. But you have to look at the love from a little bit broader perspective, and that's really, I think, what I've been working on the last couple years, especially.
That's beautiful. I think that that's holding space. I think for the conscious business own audience, the people that are small business owners, that's what they do for their employees. Employees and contractors, as they hold space for the best to be available and to
Yeah,
happen with each person, because a servant leader is a servant leader for the customers their their employees. So
absolutely.
they've got, and then hopefully they're reading good information like what you offer, so that they can fill themselves up and get more in touch with their superpowers. Because I really see, when you get clear of and release all the fears that are just in they're overbearing now, actually. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's almost comical if it wasn't real. But
yeah,
anyway, but so what happens is, once you get into the possibility of finding the love in yourself, finding the love and seeing that as your perspective, holding that as a foundation, through books like yours and workshops like you do. Okay, so one other question before we go to the IANS thing. I want to know about your art, because it seems like that's part of your superpowers that you got after you had your near-death experience. Could you talk a little bit about your beautiful art?
sure. It's yeah, it's bizarre because a lot of people wonder, well, how come you don't paint what you saw over there? And I just told you why. Like, it's not the be all and end all of my life. My whole point of coming back is really to be here, present now, enjoying my life. And so when I had actually learned how to paint a long time ago, not very well, but I didn't give it a lot of I didn't give it a lot of time. I didn't give it a lot of attention. I didn't give it a lot of weight in my life. It wasn't important for me. It was just sort of something I did. A lot of scientists have these other things they do. A lot of them are musicians, and it just helps you when we're just people think scientists are these weird, like, people who just go into the lab every day. Scientists are multifaceted typically, and extremely talented.
Yes.
You can't be in the sciences without being talented. And so we all typically had some kind of creative outlet. I was like the only one that actually painted. Most people were musicians of some sort, um, yeah, I think all of my friends were musicians of some sort, or percussionists or something like that. And so I just did that really kind of as a side thing. I didn't really, I
Yeah.
sort of thought I might want to do something with it someday, but I never really did. And then when this happened, um, I could not stop. I couldn't stop painting.
Oh, cool.
And I think part of it is that, um, first of all, it was the right time and the right space, but creativity, like you said earlier, is really that it's sort of like a direct download, not download, but it's a direct connection to that divine essence, whatever that is. And I couldn't shut it off. It was crazy. It still is like crazy. I think about painting when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed, like when I'm driving, like, so it's all the time, that visual thing. So when I came back, I just had this like bizarre, crazy idea to paint horses. And horses are a symbol of freedom and like spiritual freedom and that kind of thing. And so that's maybe where it came from, or movement, but it got me outside too, because that was the first 6 months especially was really hard because I I could move, I could walk, but I had that new surgery with all the rods and stuff, and I wasn't feeling very mobile. So this got me out to do photography, and then I'd come back into the studio to paint. And I just kept diving into it. And I, for probably the first, oh, for the next 6 years, really, it was just horses, 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 crazy amounts of horses came off my easel.
Love that.
And they became bigger paintings. So like now, so I started like painting really tiny, and then that didn't feel right, and I started painting really large, and I'm continuing to kind of expand that. But now I'm really, I love living in the Western United States. I always have. From the time I was a little girl, I grew up in the Midwest.
Me too.
I had cowboy boots, or what we call now Western boots. That's all I wore. I was this little tiny kid, and I was playing cowgirl all the time. So a few years ago, I thought, well, wait a minute. I'm living in the West now. Why don't I just paint my experience of modern life in the West? And through that comes, it isn't just like the image of a cowboy or a herding dog or whatever. I really want to capture the energy that's present in that person, that animal, whatever, because we're all infused with that divine energy. Now, so people that buy these paintings don't realize they're getting that, because a lot of them are, you know, they're from maybe the East Coast, and they want to have that cowboy thing in their
Yeah.
life a little bit. But no matter what I paint, it's kind of being infused with that energy, because that's how I experience this world. It's just another part of that divine realm. It's just, we're all infused with that energy. So
Yeah.
the paintings are more energetic, they're more dynamic. I think to me, they're better than they used to be. So yeah, go out to my art website, which is nancyrynesstudio.com, and check it out.
Yes, I've got the banner going below us, so that, and I'll put everything in the details of the comment of the description of this conversation, so everybody can go and see how beautiful these paintings are. They're really, really something. There's really something, a divine spark in them. They're beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So now let's talk a little bit about, you are a keynote at the virtual IONS conference, and I'm a volunteer for IONS, and I love, love, love this group. I love Jackie Arnold, and I'm happy to volunteer and do whatever I can, because these people, it feels like being with these people feels like going home. It feels the
Mhm.
energy, the open-heartedness, and even the researchers who may not have had the near-death experience, most of them are also open-hearted. So how do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you're doing a workshop and a keynote and I
Right.
think others. So do you want to talk about what you get to do?
A little bit, yeah. It's super secret because it's so
Oh,
different from what I normally talk about in
oh,
especially in a keynote. And it's kind of interesting because I've got the closing keynote for the conference, so I feel a lot of pressure.
uh-oh.
But I want to do something brand new. But it's gonna be pulled on. I'm gonna pull on some of the new material that's in kind of cutting edge material that's in Walking in the Light, and really talk about how we can, use a lot of this NDE wisdom that most of us don't really talk about too much. So that, like, for example, one thing that we don't talk about a lot in these IANS conferences, which I love, you're right, it's like going home. I don't feel like I have to censor what I'm saying based on, do I think this person can get what I'm saying or not? Um, I don't have to do that. I can just like let it out there. And so this, what we don't talk a lot about in these conferences, we're starting to talk a lot about now that I brought up in a conference a few years ago, is the negative after effects. And I was one of the first people, I think, in the last 5 years to really talk about that because it bothered me. So this time I want to talk about cool stuff that we don't talk about in these conferences. And one of them is time. We are, almost every experiencer will tell you that there was no time, no movement of time, no discernible passage of time. So what's that all about? What does that mean? I think Eben Alexander mentioned it in one of his keynotes a few years ago at I think it was this conference. But he didn't go into it an awful lot, and we didn't really experiment with it. So I'm going to have the audience do a little experiment with me. We'll see what comes out of that. It's going to be a time-based experiment, and not like timed, but a passage of time-based experiment. But that's all I want to say, because there are so many of those weird things that people come back with that we don't really know what to do with so much. And the passage of time is one. Being able to travel wherever you want throughout space instantaneously is another one. What does that all mean? And 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 so that's kind of where I'm going, I think, with this new material. Not just Walking in the Light, but whatever's coming next.
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, I want everyone to know the website is virtualconference.ions.org. It is an online conference. And if you can't come to it and come to all the workshops, there is, once you buy your ticket, you can watch a lot of it for 90 days afterwards. So if you miss one, you don't really have to miss one. 90 days is 3 months. You can watch it. There's over 100 speakers. There's 17 panels, and the panels are awesome, you
Yeah.
guys, because you really get to see lights come on with people. You really do, because each person's perspective sort of helps it. That's what I really love about IANS, is everyone's free sharing helps everyone have words for the mystical experiences, because these are highly mystical experiences that you feel, but you may not have language for. So,
Mhm.
but it is September 1st through the 5th. It is online. Again, the website is virtualconference.ions.org, and Nancy's going to be a keynote and doing a workshop and. So she's one of the many incredible beings, teachers that we are so fortunate to know and trust at this time of huge change. And I really think that there's a divine purpose for all of this, that all of these beings everyone's finding each other on the internet, and all of these possible sharings and up-leveling for humanity is exactly timed for this huge time of change. Do you agree?
Yep. It is. Yeah. And to me, I feel a responsibility just like a lot of other people do, to help as much as possible, to give hope and to help people kind of formulate a vision for the future that's positive rather than negative. So that's what I want to do with all this.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, could you tell everybody what's the best way to get a hold of you, so that they can go look at your art and see and get your books?
Sure. So nancyrynes.com, that's NancyRynes.com. That'll get you to everything. And there's a place in there you can send me an email as well. It's got all my books. You can, buy little stuff. And there's some meditations that you can download. I'm adding to those all the time. So, you can keep checking back. And then for my art, it's nancyrynesstudio.com, although you can get to there from nancyrynes.com.
Okay, and the Ions, I can't wait to see what you do for the Ions event, because I'll be there. I'm actually, I don't know what exactly I'm doing. I know I'm doing something Friday night, but I don't know what else. I'm just a volunteer, so
Okay.
it's like, uh-oh, need you over here. So, and I'm happy to serve. I love this group. I love everyone I've met. I can't say enough, you guys. If you're curious about this, if you want to experience the mystical, that in a non-religious way that gets to the core of who you really are, this is Fast Track.
Yeah, and I want to add one thing, that a lot of people get scared off by the near-death experience part of their name. It isn't really about that necessarily anymore. It is part of what we do, but we're really moving into, I think, from what I've seen, and even over the last 7 years, is a more like you said, Kathy, a more mystical view, and treating more of those mystical topics, because it isn't just about NDEs. It's
Right.
about a lot of these different experiences, and it's about helping other people learn from them as well, whether you've had one or not. So don't be scared off by the near death part of the title.
Right.
It's not necessarily just that.
Well, and that the knowledge that you are not alone, that you are so much bigger than you think you are, and that you're perfect the way you are.
Yeah.
That's the thing, that so many teachings say that, but when you see these people, this group of people, I mean, some of these events, there's been 500 people there,
Yeah.
and everyone's emanating from their heart, and you go, wow, cool, I found my soul tribe, because that's really, I think we're here to remember. We're here to
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
and co-create with the universe at a high level here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well put.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nancy. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me, Kathy.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to sign off. Thank you.